I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hello, and we are glad to be back. Hi, we're live.
We're live.
Tanir is in his car. We just have some extra sound effects here. Very grateful for him. Well, welcome to our after show. We've had a bumpy start, but that is not a reflection of what the rest of this episode is going to look or sound like. My name is Lauren Lagrasso. I have two amazing co-hosts, Tanir and Sean. Introduce yourselves to the people. Tell them what's up.
Hey, everybody. Sean McHugh here. Still Team Marty. And wow, this episode it just wrecked me.
For sure. It's your boy Tanir Williams. And man, like you said, the intensity of this, man, I mean, my face was like this up on the screen. Like, no, I had like tears. I was like quiet. Oh man. Yeah, that's it. I'm just ready to get into this because I think a lot to discuss.
Certainly. And maybe we'll call you Tin Tear because you had some tears
Oh, no.
in the episode.
That's what Lauren does.
It was a tear-worthy episode. I mean, there was a lot going on. Yeah. I mean, you wrote us a text after you watched it, and you're like, "What did you say, Tanir?" It was like,
I think I was just like, what did I say? I was something like, man, this is.
I got it right here. Dude, just watched episode 9. This stuff is emotionally draining.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
this one really was, and they took you on it, and they really, I mean, there were a few subtle breaks, but everything was action-packed, and every moment has purpose in the show in general, but especially in this episode, every single little moment had purpose.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, even from the actor's perspective, I don't know how that they went through that and held it together.
I was gonna say that. I was like, I don't know. I hope they didn't do too many takes of some of those scenes because I was like, it just seems like you wouldn't be able to be like, I can't do this again. You know, I mean, just the emotion with Ben and Wendy and just man. And you know what was interesting about that, Lauren, was sometimes like throughout this show, like you'll see stuff and you'll be like, oh man, that's too bad, or you feel like they portray either the sadness or like I should feel a certain. But this one, I mean, the acting in there, I was like feeling like when Wendy had to go through that, like leaving her brother and just complete breakdown. You're just like, oh my gosh, like and even the Ben situation, just seeing his, him going through his situation. That acting in this episode really got to me where I was not just like, oh yeah, I feel sad. It was like, I'm like holding back tears, so.
I mean, it cuts you to your core. The first scene in and of itself where he starts out and it's just a tirade of different emotions and things he's fought in his life and things he's gone through and all these different scenarios. And then he's in the car with the taxi cab driver and he goes, "How are you, man?"
Right.
That was his answer to "How are you?" So that shows, like, it sets it up brilliantly because we see where he's at emotionally. I didn't know where they were going in that part, but it was such a brilliant ending to it. And it was a little teeny tiny bit of comic relief, which we desperately needed in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, Ben in this episode gives a clinic on acting. I mean, and then also what I really like too is that it really gives you a really visceral sense of mental illness and like what it I mean obviously you can't be you don't know what it feels like to be mentally ill unless you're mentally ill, but I feel like this portrayal shone a big light on what that is. And I just commend the writers, the show, because you have this love-hate relationship with Ben, because one minute like he's joking, we're having a great time, and the next minute, like, what are you doing, Ben? Why won't you just listen? So
yeah, right. He gave him every opportunity to just get how severe this situation was. And it was like, each moment when it would get worse, and you're like, oh, maybe he gets it and it's going to be okay. And you breathe for a second, and then you're like, oh, I can't breathe because he doesn't understand still. And you really, I feel like the camera person took you through Wendy's journey. Like, I felt as the viewer, I was Wendy, and it was just completely heartbreaking. But so we started on the taxi. We get to Marty, and Helen is the scariest person of all time. I mean, like, just she continues to just terrify me, and I don't think there's any limit to the terror that she could bring or inflict.
Helen has she will have like literally 2 seconds of emotion where you're like, oh, she's like a human. Like when she was talking about her daughter, like, oh, she's never gonna trust me again. And I literally thought I saw like a little like, oh, is she about to tear up a little bit? And then it's like, so you know what must have to be done. He must die because you're like, wow, the robot is back. Like,
Yeah.
dude, she is like a cyborg. Just man.
Well, I like that scene with when she comes to Wendy's or Marty and Wendy's house, and then Marty calls. It's funny. Wendy lost her poker face because she knew what was going to happen, what needed to happen, and that's the first time. Because usually Wendy's really good at holding the poker face, but
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you guys. Because for a minute I thought, okay, we're in the clear because Wendy hasn't revealed that she knows, so we're going to be all right. But it was her brother. And it's interesting. That's a good thing to think about for life in general. Like, this, I think TV teaches us a lot about life, because it's imitating life. And there's certain things that we cannot maintain our composure on. We might know the right thing to do. We might have done it a million times, but we're put in a certain scenario with something that we care about too much, and we can't act the way we know we should. And we've probably had small moments of that in our life and in our career. But Wendy's the biggest one now, where she knows she's going to have to really make impossible choices. Because also, if she chooses her brother, she could be sacrificing her family, which is this whole complicated thing. And it gets even deeper when we find out that the kids are tangled up in this because Aaron went to the kids to ask them about what's going on. I thought the kids wouldn't crack. Why do you think the kids opened up and said, hey, we got yes, this is what's happening?
I think it was just because oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think because of the amount of information that she's like spitting out when they're just like, okay, like, I think at the beginning, if it had just been like, dude, like, is your parents this and this, and are they drug dealers? Like, what? Like, no, like, that's crazy. But then when she just starts going into like detail, and especially when she was like, dude, your uncle came over and told, and it's like, okay, well, I think they kind of felt like, all right, look, like this is kind of where it's at because they had kind of been through that situation before. So maybe they were like, look, we're just going to give it to you. I don't know if it was really cracking, just more of like, look, we're just going to give it to you straight. That's the way I kind of saw it.
Yeah, I just to go off on what Tanir said, I think it was also it was a kind of a comfort. Like, okay, listen, you're right, but here's the good news. You have us to help you through this. So I think they thought they were doing the right thing, not necessarily cracking, but just trying to like let her know that she's not crazy.
Right. And making the best of a terrible situation.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if in that scenario, Helen was going to blame the kids. Like, I still felt she was on the fence about that. Even when they walked in, I wasn't sure if she was going to go after them at that point because they further revealed to her what was going on. But it seems like maybe they're safe-ish, as safe as they can.
And also the fact that they just really, it's not like that they were prepared for it. Like, hey, Aaron knows this happened. Like, you could come up with a story. I mean, they literally got blindsided. Like, yeah, what's going on? Yeah, your uncle like this and this. And it's like, wait, what? Like, I mean, they had like seconds to process and they tried. And then after a while, she just kept coming. And it's like, look, all right, because like you said, kids are smart. If they start stumbling or trying to make stuff up, she's going to know, like, you guys are lying, So it's just like, you know what? Let's just come out with it and let her know.
But also,
I think they thought just going on a nice little boat ride, and then they roll up to that shit show.
But also, like, Helen even said, like, the X factor here is Ben, and like she said, there's no room in this business for mental illness, and he'll sell someone else, and then he literally went and did it, a half hour later. So
and not even an important person. And we're going to get to that. One other thing we need to mention, though, is that his next stop after Helen's was Ruth's. And when he rolls up to Ruth's and Ruth has found out, Marty comes up too, finds out what happened, and then they realize they're in deep trouble. So that's when he goes on the adventure with Ruth with the shotgun, and she tries to get Dodge, but that guy's just unstoppable with how much damage he can do. We went to Darlene's. I wrote down, this is my little thought on Darlene for this episode. Darlene is kind of great in her own fucking way.
Yeah, no, she is. She knows what needs to be done and what in the situation, and she knows that she's a haven, and she knows that she's getting an ally in Ruth. So
yeah,
that was the
some can have the areas.
Right. It was kind of like more the cold-blooded part about it. I felt that Darlene was almost seeing it as an opportunity, like you said, to kind of bring in Ruth more. Like, I could really kind of maybe care less about Ben, but if that's going to bring Ruth in, and she comes across as, hey, I'm trying to take care of your boyfriend, I'm helping out. She knows that's going to be very endearing to Ruth, to bring her on her side to get done whatever she, like Sean said, bring in another ally to do what she wants to do. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'll step in and help out. I don't think it was really out of all the goodness of her heart to really take care of, like you said, Wendy's brother. But I think it's more of like, this is furthering her own agenda. So
right,
to kind of step in.
And when he was there, I mean, obviously that's before the rest of this all took place, but I was thinking, oh, maybe he'll work on the farm and he could be part of the new operation, and this could be really great for her. So maybe that was part of her thinking as well. But
yeah, I mean, it would have been real easy if Ben would have just stayed on the farm. Like
all would have gone away. Of course, we wouldn't have a show, but yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating from like a human point of view to watch a show, because you obviously want the show to keep going because you're a fan of the show, but from a human and empathetic side, you're like, why did you have to make that choice? Like, you could have just not made that choice. And this whole episode, it was like 12 of those things.
Yes.
So if you're any level of empathy watching this is a bitch.
Yeah.
Well,
it was funny,
go ahead. Sorry.
Even that situation when they first got to Darlene's, and he's still talking about like, I'm not going nowhere, and Ruth just lays the law down to the point. Like, did you guys notice like Wyatt's face in it? He was even like, ooh wee, like she was like, get your stuff and go to the fucking desert. You're just like, he was like, okay, and I think even Darlene was kind of like, that's my girl right there. Like, that's what that's what I need, because that's I feel like how she would handle something. And Wyatt was like, yep, yeah, better go do what she says, So yeah, it's like you said, there were so many just emotional ups and downs, because I think one of the big themes was just, like you said, Lauren, in terms of dealing with family, it's kind of like, man, like, this is my brother, but man, you are making it so hard. Like she said, like at one point, they're going to come kill my kids and I got to make this decision. You are just continually making bad ones, putting me in just the toughest position. And just like you said, that when she walked away at the end, I mean, I was so conflicted, because you're like, you do what you got to do. But again, that's your family that you're literally walking out on them, and you got to kill her, rolling up in the parking lot behind. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. That's why I was just like, like heartbreaking, because that's, who wants to be put in that situation and make that decision,
Just to give us a little bit of comic relief, because there was not much of this episode. In the beginning, when Ruth and Marty are at Ruth's, and then Marty's kind of trying to say, we got to get him out of here. I love Ruth says to him, you've known me since I was 19. Is that the kind of treatment I got to look forward to?
Right.
Which, referring to putting Ben in the hospital. So that made me laugh out loud when she said that.
Right. Yeah, and there was another beautiful Ruth moment, and that was the hug between her and Wyatt. That whole little scene they had was so tender when they both reveal that they're in love. And obviously Wyatt has talked about how he was so unhappy and miserable, and that he's finally happy. And for a minute you think they're both going to get their happiness, but clear now that that's not going to happen.
Well,
I felt it, especially in the casino scene when she gave Ben that hug, like, go with Marty. When Ruth did, you kind of felt like that look that she gave him was like, this is the last time I'm gonna see you. I mean, the tears in her eyes and, stuff. And it was kind of like, I just don't think you're going to make it, or something you really messed up, type thing. And, yeah, it was, for her, I feel like, I guess I had one thing that I was concerned about. I was thinking, like, as we were going through the middle of the episode, I was wondering, I was like, what if there's a twist and they're going to come after Ben? And what if somehow, like, Ruth gets tied up and she ends up getting shot or killed? And I was like, they better not do, because she's so down for him. I was like, I hope she doesn't get in the way and try to do something and, get taken out. But, yeah, Ben, I don't know. That was just, like you said, a heart-wrenching, just watching him go through those ups and downs. It was tough, man. It was tough.
Well, okay, so there's another part that I thought was interesting, and I wonder if this is going to come to fruition more, where Wendy talks to Marty about how Navarro is going to be involved in this somehow. And she says, he needs to know that we're more valuable than she is, meaning more valuable than Helen. I mean, it's toward the end of this episode, obviously, that things probably went a certain way and that Uncle Ben was taken out and that things are going to be somehow healed. But is this going to become a thing after this? Do you think that that's still going to come into play in the final episode in the future?
I think so.
Man.
I definitely know, because, just to go along with that, when Wendy and Ben have that whole scene in the car and, her little draw comes out and she says, oh, she's smarter than me. And then, you really think that? It's like, no, I don't think that. So, Wendy is aware of Helen's ruthlessness, and, she knows that she has to show that she's more valuable. I don't think she would have said that if that wasn't going to come into play.
Right, because everything's a little nugget, all those pieces. I totally agree with you. And I love that piece that you brought up, Sean, because have you guys ever done that when you're talking about someone who you either like have a rivalry with, or maybe they got something that you wanted that you didn't get, and or they're just being mean to you, something in that kind of arena, and you're talking about them and you're saying, oh, they're so much more this than me or that than me. And then you realize, like, you're just saying that somehow to, like, justify the situation. I don't know. I felt like I've had so many, like, in my career, I've had so many situations like that where I've been like, well, they probably got that because they're more talented or they're more this or that. And it's like, a lot of it's just circumstantial,
Yeah.
and we just own our own power. So even though they're talking about incredibly screwed up and unrelatable things, I think it's a good thing for us to remember, like, we need to own our own power in our lives and not put other people on a pedestal, because we're our own saviors and we're just as good as a person who's doing what we want to do.
Man, I think it's going to be interesting how once Wendy kind of, how Wendy bounces back from this, because I feel like going through this situation and knowing that basically, like, Helen was behind this, like having to race her brother out and having her to make this decision. I wonder if she's just going to go in just straight, like, not like crazy, but just like she's on a mission, maybe, to be like you said, in terms of putting it to Navarro, like, hey, we got to make sure he knows we're more important than her. Like, I feel like she just might go to an extreme where we'll just be like, whoa, Wendy, because she's like, dude, you took out my brother. Like, I hate Helen now. I don't know. Like, I feel like she's gonna, those kind of situations sometimes for people that it's almost like, certain things kind of trigger you and she might go into like a quiet rage, but, directed in a way where it's just be like, man, maybe she's willing to do stuff that kind of like how Marty went through his like little transformation and now he was all gangster. Like, maybe Wendy might take it up even more of a notch. Like, you know what? I'm about to like erase her or something like that. I don't know.
Well, there was, in the same scene we were just referencing, there was that point when Ben said to her, you should have stayed in politics. You were great at it. You could have been something. And she's like, I could still be something. So I think that's a but then there's also the piece at the end of the episode where she was in shambles after leaving him at the table and knowing she probably left him to get murdered. And she was crying. And didn't she say something to the extent of like, I don't want to do this anymore, or like, I don't want to be here anymore, something in that vein?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all in the moment, to be honest. I mean, I think obviously like there was a lot going on there for her. But remember in that scene with Ben in the car, which he said, he's like, why do you, Ben said, why do you do it? She says, well, because fighting for your life makes everything else you've ever done seem dull. And then he says, you must be tired. And she says, you'd think so.
Mm,
She is gangster. Now,
right.
granted, you know, taking your brother out, that's going to take a toll on you, and she's going to need a minute. But I think Wendy is the
She's a
G.
catnap. She'll be back.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
for sure.
Because
Yeah,
end of
like
the
you said,
day,
like,
I'm sorry to interrupt, Tanir.
oh no,
She is the one that made the decision. You know what I mean? Like, and I think she needed to make, because she kept seeing how like it doesn't matter what I do, I can't control him. He's
Mhm.
uncontrollable. He's unstable. He's got to go. I mean, she have to like of mice and men, her brother. You
I
know?
thought
right.
she was going to. I thought maybe she was gonna like let him. I thought at some point he might take the car, and she was gonna let him take the car, just like get him the hell out of there, because he was gonna kill her one way or another.
Yeah.
He was gonna kill her. He was gonna kill her kids. And so in this business, I mean, yeah, ideal world, they would have never gotten into it. But now that they're so deep in, they have to make tough choices like that. And I think she finally recognized she couldn't have it all. Like she couldn't make a good decision for her brother and for her family. She had to
Right.
let her go.
Well, and the fact that he wasn't like kind of willing to help himself, just like any kind of like addict in something, it's like the people have to want to get the help, you know. And if he's just going to keep on doing it, you're like, man, I can only help you like so much. Now you're actually at a point, like you said, where you've already put my family in danger, and now you keep doing it. I mean, to the point where it's like, come on, man, like I'm trying, but you gotta help me. You gotta help me help you, little Jerry Maguire, you know. And he just wasn't doing that. And like you said, I think it just all came to a head where she was like, as sad as it is, I gotta make this break. And I mean, obviously she would have rathered it. No one would have rathered it probably end in a murder or a hit, you know, type thing. But just to make that kind of decision, which I think actually makes it, like you said, as part of the show. I mean, to make the stakes so high where it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to drop you off in Knoxville and just drive off and maybe like kind of shed a tear. It's like literally life and death that she had to choose between, and she basically chose the death side. So
That scene almost killed me when she goes,
dang.
"Where can I take you where you'll be safe?" And he's crying and he's crying, and then he talks about, like, I could almost cry starting to talk about it, but he talks about, he's like, I know some people in Knoxville, and like
Yeah.
I
I
know
know
where
the
all
hospitals
the
and
are. Oh God, like I mean, it almost killed me to watch that scene. That the actor who played probably plays Ben.
plays Ben. Yeah.
So I mean, if you're watching, so beautiful, like
Yeah.
such incredibly beautiful, deep, heartfelt work. I believe you, man. I mean, that was
Yeah.
rough to watch.
No, he
Yeah,
did.
and
That guy, he did his, whether, I don't know if it was like homework or someone worked with him, like you said, on mental illness, but man, he put it in a way where, like you said, it wasn't like, it was so multifaceted where you're like, I see the crazy, but you have like empathy for him, you know, where you're like, he's just not totally off the wall, where you're like, get this guy out of here, you know, type thing. You were just like, you saw the
He's trying
struggle.
in his own way. He's trying in his own way to do what was right. I mean, he wanted to call Helen so that he could
Right.
clear the air, and he thought maybe that could make things better. He told somebody in the parking lot that Navarro was after him because he thought, well, maybe this will save me and Wendy. He had, in his own very short-sighted way, ideas of how he could help the situation, but unfortunately everything he did dug a deeper grave for him. Yeah,
And
it was really heartbreaking.
it kind of like, actually Sean and I talked about this in the last episode, how he's just so, his ways are so simple, and he's like the truth, like he's so truthful and real about things. Like in the world that he's in, you're just like, you can't be like that, even though it's the most, you know, encouraging, like, yes, like you should be able to just call people or tell the truth all the time and confront people, but it's just like, this is not the world where you can just do that stuff off the cuff, you know. And it's like you said, it just seems like he doesn't, his personality and the way he is, as endearing as it is, it just does not fit and doesn't work, you know, on any level. So
Yeah, I mean, he's a pure soul, and you know, he knows like, well, this isn't right and this isn't wrong. And it's like, but he's too pure for the world, really.
right.
Combined with his mental illness, it's just a recipe for disaster, unfortunately. But just to go off what you were saying, Lauren, again, like the way they portray this mental illness in this guy, it's such a human portrayal. You know, like again, like 1 minute you're crying with Wendy because like the next minute you're like ready to kill this guy. Like so, it's so complex and it's so well written, and then of course this execution from this actor is just amazing.
Yeah, and you know, in the midst of this, there were some really tender moments between Marty and Wendy. They said "I love you" when she was crying after that moment when she talked about Knoxville and he called Helen. Um, when she pulled over on the side of the road after she left him at the restaurant, Marty was calling her baby and honey. I mean, we haven't heard maybe do this ever. So that was interesting. What was your take on those tender moments between the two of them while this hell was going down?
Well, first of all, he had such the calming voice. You know, I mean, it was just like she's like kind of hysterical, and he's just like Wendy. You know, like and you're just like, wow. I mean, just the juxtaposition of her just screaming and crying and just be, you know, and he's just like Wendy. Like you said, it was just, you were like, man, this is where it just seemed like like through all the nonsense that they've been through and, you know, gotten in, like, this was like one of the most real moments where you were like, you felt like, man, maybe the two of them were like, this could really be it. You know, like she could be in trouble, you know, I don't know, where it hit Marty like, hey, all that nonsense, that BS aside, you know, maybe I love you. Like he knew what she, you know.
Come home, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you. Come home. Let me take care of you.
Right.
For me, this was definitely the most emotional part of the episode. Because I mean, I'm a husband, I have a wife, I have a brother too. And like all of a sudden, like I was in that world, they brought me in where I was like, I could, you know, obviously I'm not with the cartel, but like I could really,
Here both are. We're on this show.
I could really like I've had versions of those conversations, you know, like with my wife or trying to calm her down, and you know, because this something had happened, and so it just really hit me as like a husband. That it was just really emotional for me, all that whole scene, and just wanting to be there and hug her, and he couldn't. He's like literally doing it through the phone, and he does such a great job. You're right. He pulled everything out to try to calm her down, because he knew that like he had to get her, be able to drive home, you know.
And I think it also speaks to, Sean, what you were saying in terms of, and we've heard it actually even in real life dealing with this Corona stuff. I know I've heard it on I think it was one of Donald Trump's things where people have said like, hey, in times of crisis, like you really learn about, you know, the real person really comes out, you know, in terms of people. And I mean, I couldn't see a bigger crisis than this. And like you said, your spouse on the road, she's crying, like possibly life in danger. And his first thing is to, like you said, go into husband mode. Like, I love you. Like, I'm going to take care of you, know? So you're just like, throughout all the nonsense, that the fights that they've gone through, when push came to shove, he's like, I'm here for you though, you know? Yeah. All that other stuff is out the window right now. You get home, let me take care of you, and let's keep, you know, move on. So,
and I feel like that's a change we've seen though, because there've been this is obviously a heightened level of emotion and something much deeper and more devastating than anything else maybe they've been through. But a lot of times when there'll be an emotional moment, Marty will go right back to business. And it was nice to act so human and really to prioritize his relationship and his family over work. Like the deeper parts of it. Like obviously he's prioritized safety before, but to prioritize like the emotional parts of what makes a family over work. Even when Helen was there, I was like, because it seemed like from the way they cut it, those two were together for a prolonged period of time. I wonder what the conversations were like between them that we didn't see. And there was another really interesting subplot that was happening, which was that he was trying to get Maya back on the job and to have her there for a prolonged period of time, because obviously that was going to need to be an asset that they made come through so that Navarro doesn't want to murder them. So our little real estate friend was brought back into the fold. He's back at the gambling. He's freaking out. There was also that funny scene where when Ben walked in and he was swearing because Marty was swearing because he was seeing him on the screen. Right. And the real estate guy thought he was swearing at him. He's like, "You're swearing at me again, man. What are you doing? Why are you listen at me?"
Poor Sam.
I mean, so badly for him.
I know. And like, they're lucky. Like, this guy can just be like, "F you guys, I'm out." Like. Right. But obviously they feel that they have him on lock, so they're not too concerned. And obviously they also have bigger issues than Sam. But still, I'm like, you could be a little more human to Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's so funny because everybody just comes out, even like Ruth. When he goes like, "Hey, Ruth, can I talk to you real quick?" And she's like, "What?"
Do what I told you to do.
Right. And she's like, "But it's a lot of money." And she's like, "I don't give a rat's ass," just walking away. And he's just probably like, "I can't win. I can't, you guys help me out. Help a brother out real quick," and just everyone's like,
the poor guy context, I think he would feel a lot better about himself and his relationship. Like, the fact of the matter is, your stupid problem about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars doesn't really matter that much when you got somebody who's a henchman for the cartel after your brother-in-law. Sorry, right. Sam.
Sorry, Sam.
And I'm so surprised. Like, I feel like there's something where the FBI agent Maya Miller, that she could just go, like, he would just be singing in like a second. I feel like if she just cornered Sam, be like, "Tell me what's going on," he'd be like, "Okay, you know what? They made me do this," and like, I feel like, but she hasn't done that yet. He just keeps walking. So I don't know if she's waiting for like some setup, or maybe there's some rule that she can't do stuff. But I'm like, man, he is just primed to sing. They just need to pull him in a room, and information will start flying out. So I'm always worried when I see him, because I'm like, "Ooh, Sam, you are not the toughest toughest dude in the room to be sitting down dealing." I mean, Ruth deals with that stuff better than he does. So
I totally agree, but I think because he is so scared, maybe he'd be more likely to not do anything unless he had information from Marty and Wendy, because he's scared. Like, he could go either way, like you're saying, Tanner. He could spill the beans, or he could be so scared that he like just goes to them and waits for them to tell him what to do. So I don't know. That would be an interesting one to see. I feel it might be a small issue, but it's ultimately not going to be a big thing for them in their continual building of the cartel empire.
Yeah,
it's true.
You guys, oh wait, can I just say one other thing I loved? Marty was eating chips and watching TV in the middle of all this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is cool, calm, and collected.
Is that was when Maya had contacted him about stuff, and he was just like, "Okay,"
and Helen was around, and he was just sitting there eating chips.
Right. She's like, "We will not be friends." He's like, "Anyway, anything else?"
Yeah. Must have been what did he say? Must have been a high roller came in. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was also a scene between Marty and the kids when they were talking and asking what's going to happen, and the kids. Oh, like before that, even there was the scene between the four of them where the kids like pulled their chairs up to the table. I thought that was pretty powerful to show, like, hey, we're in this. You can't talk alone. We're part of this now.
Yeah.
Is there anything we missed, guys? Anything you want to talk about that we didn't hit? Any big moments that pulled your heart?
Well, I just think we need to do our special segment.
So special.
Always.
Tanir, this was your baby. You want to?
That is it. So you guys know every week we do our Hell to the Ozark moment of the show, the part that just makes you say, "Oh, hell no," and we've had many throughout this great season. And today, I mean, this episode was no different. So, I mean, I'll start with my Hell to the Ozark moment was actually when Ben went to Ruth when Ben went to Ruth's place after he got drunk, he jumped out the cab and he has a little discussion with Marty, and he tells them that, hey, I went to Helen's, told his daughter all this stuff, and they're all freaking out. And Ruth goes in, grabs the shotgun, and gets in, and she's like, "Come on, get in!" And he was like, you could kind of see, I think even at one point he mumbled under his breath. He was like, "Oh God," or like, "Oh fuck, what's going on?" Because she was in just like, just hardcore mode. And I was like, hell, dude, look at Ruth, like ready to just go out and be militant and do what I got to do. I was like, that's what I'm talking about, Ruth, So that was my hell to the Ozark.
I'll go next. When they were at the one truck stop where they were literally on the side of the road, and then, Wendy has to break the phone and he goes away. And I said, oh, hell no. Wendy's going to have to take Ben out, not Helen. It's going to be Wendy. So.
And in a way it was.
No, it was. I mean, she made the call, They were in Knoxville. She had to tell, Nelson where they were. So that was Wendy's call. So that was, wow. I was like, wow, she's got to do it. Yeah.
Those two are great. I have two, both with our girl Wendy. My first one is he needs to know that we're more valuable than she is. And I think we'll come to see how that will play out in the future. There was also a littler one, but something that I think we should mention. And that it was like right after she had said, Helen's smarter than me, when she talked the cop down after Ben had said that Navarro was after her. And she just was so brilliant. I mean, she had all the ammo. She knew the laws. She was able to talk this woman out of searching her car. And the cop asked her if she's a lawyer, and she goes, no. But that just shows how savvy, street smart, and just life smart Wendy is. And, even though this is probably one of the worst things she'll ever go through, she's going to continue to rise and build their evil empire.
She Jedi mind tricked the cop. She was like, we are not the people you're looking for.
And that was impressive, Lauren, because like you said, she had just woken up. So, sometimes when you're in a deep sleep and you wake up, it takes like a couple minutes to be like, oh, where are my bearings? What's going, cop knock at the window, what's going on? And for her to just break out like, well, you're going to have to do this and this, and you're going to have a warrant. And, to do that, I was like, look at this, like her wheels, like you said in the last episode when she was talking to Agent Maya, when she came to the house and she whipped out the law on, oh, so you want Marty to take the deal to become a convicted felon? A felon can't run a casino, right? And you're just like, dude, she's got the whole Missouri like state law book like in her head, and she just whips it out like at any point. You're just like, man, this woman is good, so under pressure. So, and you kind of see it like in her face after a while, like as she started rolling with it. You can kind of see like her demeanor was like, yeah, do you really want to do that? Then you're like, oh, that's when you're good. When you're like, I know I got you, type thing.
Yeah, well, she was definitely enjoying it. Well, guys, tell our friends where they can find you. And, well, if you want to say a prediction, too, for the last episode, I welcome it. Combine it with your plug.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll say my prediction first. I'm predicting that I think my prediction is going to go over to Ruth. I think Ruth's going to really jump over to the dark side with Darlene. And especially if it somehow gets back to her that Ben was killed and she feels that, Wendy and the birds had something to do. Oh, I think that'll really set her off. Like, nope, I'm definitely going with Wyatt and Darlene now. You have really turned my life upside down. So I think there's going to be a big story with that. And, you guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Tenerew. That's at TENEREW.
You know what? It's funny because we didn't see the actual taking out of Ben happen. So I'm going to predict that it doesn't go quite as smoothly as Nelson is expecting it to. He might get away and he might roll back to the Ozarks, so we might not be done with Ben yet. I'm just saying.
Oh, Sean, you blew my mind. Oh my gosh. I hope Sean said happens, and I hope that he goes back to Darlene's, and I hope that he becomes a partnership with her, and that Ruth joins Darlene and they form an alliance. And then there's Wendy, and I hope Marty and Wendy keep doing their thing, but then they're also going to take out Helen, and then them and Navarro get even
Whoa.
deeper in the
Wow. Wow,
Now
you
they
got
bring
season
Lauren
5
on the
and 6
writing?
written, or
Right.
4 and 5. Yeah, wow.
Writing Lauren on the writing staff right now. They're like, we like this girl right here.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
Bring her in.
Bring her in.
Call me. Hey, I'm available. I'm home. We're all home.
You can find me at SeanStar75 on the gram and Gorilla Suit Sean on Twitter.
Love it. And I forgot to mention, you guys, if you do have time, it would mean the most to us and give us so much support and love. If you could write a comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel, rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and follow it on Spotify. My name is Lauren Lagrasso. You can find me at Lauren Lagrasso everywhere. I have a great podcast called Unleash Your Inner Creative. I've been doing lots of quarantine related content about how you can be creative while in quarantine, and also like tips to deal with anxiety and depression, because that's something a lot of creative people go through. And I have a single out I'm a singer-songwriter, on the 17th of April. So I hope you check that out. And thank you for joining us this season. We have one more episode. It's going to be live in just like 2 hours. So less than that. Come with us. Thanks, guys. Thanks, AfterBuzz TV.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
You're so funny.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.